So in this video, I'm going to be giving you a system you can follow to guarantee yourself distinctions in every test, every exam that you're going to write this year. And this system is the one I personally use to become part of the top 30 learners in the entire country back in my matric year, and also become a top performing student in my degree at university. So it's a four-step system that if you apply, you're definitely going to guarantee yourself distinctions in whatever paper you write. So I'm going to start by telling you how most students prepare for exams. So what they do is they spend a chunk of their time going through their notes, going through their test book, because they always feel like they haven't covered enough or they haven't covered everything. So they waste a lot of their time doing that. And then after doing that, like, okay, cool, let me go to past question papers. But the mistake they do when they're using past question papers is they attempt the past question paper, and then after they mark for themselves, just reviewing the memo, and they'll be like, okay, cool, I think I understand that now, and I'm fine. And then they move on, right? But when they get to the exam or the test, they surprised that they don't remember most of the stuff that they were studying. And there are a few mistakes that they're doing there. So I'm going to give you this four-step framework or system that if you start applying, you're definitely gonna crash every test, every exam that you walk into. So the first step is you need to learn, right? So when you're going through your notes, you're going through your test book, make sure that you highlighting, you underlining all the key important tasks, and you writing some sort of basic notes in whatever test book, whatever notes that you're reading, right? Just to write a short summary to ensure that you really understand and you're really grasping the principles or whatever is being taught in that paper. And by doing this small thing, you're moving from passively reading to actively reading. And the second step to the system is you need to do your practice question papers. But what I want you to do when you're doing your practice question papers is I want you to basically treat them as if you already in that exam. So do them under exam conditions, meaning that you need to set a timer for yourself. Ensure that you try as much as possible to write within the time frame so that you can see whether you're gonna survive the exam pressure when you get there. And after doing so, you're going to basically train your mind to be ready for the exam pressure, for the exam conditions. When you get there, you'll realize that you won't panic as much because you've already trained yourself to be under exam conditions. And that includes also writing the answers without referring to any of your notes or any of your test books to ensure that your mind is really remembering whatever you studied. You don't need to be perfect, remember. You just need to train your mind to be able to answer questions under exam conditions. And step number three, after you're done attempting the question, is I want you to now basically mark for yourself, right? But what most students do is they just mark for themselves and say, okay, cool, I get it now, and they move on. But what I want you to do is I want you to mark for yourself and give yourself a percentage for each required or for each question. For example, question 1.1 was out of 5 marks, and I got like 1 out of 5. Therefore, that's like 20%. 1 divided by 5 is 20%. Once you start doing this, you'll realize that by the time you've marked the entire paper, you can basically pinpoint which specific questions were difficult for you. And what do? You basically ask yourself what topic or section of the work was covered in that specific question. Let's say, for example, it was covering forex exchange or foreign exchange, whatever, right? I'm speaking about economics now. I didn't do economics. Let me go to accounting, which is like my comfortable point. So let's say, for example, the work was covering relevant costing. Now you know that for all those specific questions whereby you got low marks, which topics were being tested, and you go there and review your notes strategically because now you know exactly where you're struggling. But what I want you to do is after reviewing your notes and looking at the memo again to try and make sense of the memo, once you feel like the memo clicks in all the questions that you struggled with when you were answering the questions under exam condition, I don't want you to just move on, because the next step to move from just understanding to mastering is you need to take whatever the memo was saying in that specific question and try to write it down in words, in your own words, right? Don't try to use the words that are in the memo. Try to write it down in your own words and write it in process form to say, whenever I see a question like this, I'm going step number one, this is what I need to do. Step number 2, this is what I need to do. Step number 3, maybe this is what I need to discuss. And by doing that, you're developing a framework for yourself for similar questions, that whenever you come across such questions, this is a process that you're going to follow in the test or an exam, especially for those technical subjects such as mathematics and accounting, whereby the numbers are really a reflection of the process behind the numbers, or the thought process. So if you understand the process, you'll start getting the numbers right. But if you obsess over the numbers, not understanding the process, you'll never reach the mastery level. So that's step number 3. Step number 4 of this system is I want you to teach, right? So you can do this in 2 ways. You can either stand in front of a whiteboard or pretend like you're explaining whatever work you've just learned to someone else, and make sure that you basically teaching out loud, right? You pretend like you're teaching someone, or if possible, maybe you're in a study group or you have a couple of friends, you're doing the same course or the same subject. Try to explain to them in your own words what you understood with whatever section that you were studying, or with whatever question that you attempted. Try to explain it to them. And what I've realized is, most of the times, if you're a person and you're trying to explain something to someone, you'll usually see whether you're speaking BS or not, whether you understand that thing or not. Because when you're speaking something out loud, you usually realize that, no, I really don't understand this, or there's a certain thing that I can't fully articulate, meaning that I don't really understand that thing. And I always say this: if you can't explain something in simple terms, you don't understand it. So that's step number 4, which is the most important, which most students ignore. That to master something, to move from just understanding to mastering something, so that you ensure that you're getting 80% plus, 90% plus, or even 100% in a test or exam, you need to teach someone. And by teaching someone, you're definitely moving from understanding to mastering that thing. So this is the 4-step system that if you start applying when you're preparing for any test, any exam, you're going to crash that exam. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and if you serious about moving from average to distinctions, make sure that you go to the link in our description and look at some of the resources that we provide to you to move from average to distinction.